The big tech has become the greatest inspiration for the automotive industry. Car companies are adopting the Silicon Valley business model to gradually transform drivers into users. Cars today are being enriched with more and more smartphone-like features as drivers lose more and more control over their vehicles. If you bought a car anywhere in the last decade, you didn't just pay with your money. You signed up to hand over troves of data from your personal life as well. Automakers today are data companies. A modern car can generate about 4 terabytes of data a day. Automakers realize the value of this data and are beginning investing heavily to compete with software companies for ad-driven user attention. Soon, the biggest competitors of GM and BMW won't be just other car companies, but Facebook and TikTok. The trend is irreversible. Selling data is a high-margin business with 80 to 90% profit, compared with the average profit margins of selling cars that rarely exceed double digits. Understanding the drive for data is easy. It's the new currency. Self-driving cars and electric vehicles aren't the only threat to transportation privacy. Tesla is basically Facebook on wheels, but that deserves its own video. Much of the invasive surveillance is already happening in almost all modern cars on the roads today. In the United States, 2017 was the first year where more new cars were added to cellular networks than cell phones. In 2018, 32 of 44 brands were equipped with wireless data transmission. Some estimated by 2025, 100% of new cars will be connected to the network. This enables the new field of data collection to skyrocket: telematics. A hybrid of telecommunications and informatics, telematics is the study and application of motor vehicle data collection. The industry already so massive it makes companies like Toyota or Daimler invest billions into smart technology solutions for their cars. By 2030, the global market cap for car data monetization could reach $750 billion. That's revenue on top of the profit from car sales and renting. The hottest new innovation is a connected car. While most cars today implement onboard diagnostics and event data recorders that already store troves of data, the goldmine is in the transmission from vehicle-computer system of electronic control units. Together with embedded sensors, these systems can transmit hundreds of data points from a single car. Data like seatbelt status, engine temperature, and, you guessed it, current vehicle location. Growing amount of data no longer stays in your car, but gets transmitted to automakers and third parties, much of whom you've never heard of. There are surveillance contractors making deals with governments and militaries in the US and elsewhere, offering real-time location intelligence on cars from almost any country around the world. One such company can access 15 billion vehicle locations every month from all countries but North Korea and Cuba. Other companies like Automakers partner with original equipment manufacturers to develop commercial marketplaces for connected cars. In-car marketplaces permit brands to offer drivers the ability to interact with third-party apps like Domino's, Netflix, or Starbucks to make purchases straight from their cars. As if doing it on your phone was not good enough? But I shouldn't be surprised, people apparently want to use their fridges to order food deliveries. Speaking of phones, have you ever connected yours to a car? It's become ubiquitous to sync up your device with a car via Bluetooth. Well, connecting your phone with a car means the automaker or renter will collect your phone's device name and device IDs, contacts, in-car browser and search history, call and message logs, names of Wi-Fi connections, music streaming accounts, and of course, your phone's GPS history. So not only does your manufacturer or rental company get to know every route you drive, but also everywhere you take your phone with you. None of this information is confined to just businesses or organizations directly involved in the car industry. Data aggregators can just as easily purchase your information from automakers and OEMs, enrich them with their own datasets containing open source intelligence in their own trackers, repackage it, and sell to others. These data brokers already ravage your phone and internet privacy by embedding their trackers inside apps and websites you use. And now they are in your car too. Oh, and you don't get it in benefit from data brokers. There is no trade-off, no free service in return. They're just collecting your data from every possible source in existence and then resell it in neatly organized profiles to anyone willing to pay. Quite literally anyone. Isn't it fascinating to contemplate there is an unlimited amount of people that can track your location, stalk everyone you've talked to, and look at every website you've ever visited and search you've ever made? And they also get to know how much of a lousy driver you are? Nothing to see here. This is all perfectly legal, totally normal and expected behavior. The most overused "but I have nothing to hide" meme is completely out of place and delusional here. Insurance companies are among the top players interested in purchasing your vehicle data. They use it to determine their plans, pricing, and premiums they should charge you. You might think paying with your data makes things cheaper, but the cost is always offset by getting charged more elsewhere. That's why insurers are willing to pay for your data. And of course, this means that just like you have a credit score, a consumer score, and a health score, now you also have a smart driver score. Oh yeah, you have secret scores that impact your access to products and services, just like the Chinese social score. But make no mistake, Smart Driver Score is just a politically correct packaging. Inside, it's an insurance risk assessment that uses telematics to monitor your driving behavior, like how hard you brake or turn, how much you speed, or whether you drive in non-designated areas. You thought redlining was a thing of the past?
Think again.
Your driving profile can easily make assessments when you apply for a job or healthcare plan, giving employers or service providers the ability to automate exclusion of people based on whatever metric makes them more profit and minimizes losses. But rejoice, for the world of surveillance is beautiful, because now car makers can study your listening habits to convince you through the persuasive power of ads to go to the McDonald's restaurant instead of Tim Hortons. And even if it may sound just a little bit big brotherly, GM knows that's a trade-off you're willing to make.
We live in a society where
Owning cars is still cheaper than renting it.
Isn't that right? Batman.
But at the dawn of self-driving vehicles, you can start thinking of erasing human labor out of the steering equation. Because when you do that, the price of renting drops to 22 cents a mile, more than threefold decrease from car ownership. Welcome to the desert of the mobility as a service. It's a world where BMW and Daimler invest over $1 billion to develop a service to compete with tech firms like Uber and Lyft. This automaker alliance is now focused on, quote, new technologies and business models based on software and mobile communications that don't necessarily involve owning a car. Toyota similarly invested $1 billion for a cloud infrastructure solution to build a platform for third parties to plug into with their applications. Mobility as a service is not a concept invented by automakers. It's a new industry of diverse interests, including car sharing tech, smart cities, and transportation planning. But with the addition of new sensors and cameras on cars, the new available data opens up opportunities that weren't possible before. Through a process called harvesting, new companies will be using data from car sensors to map their immediate surroundings. This could give city planners and developers insight into where crashes occur, identify where drivers often speed, or where cyclists and pedestrians concentrate. The potential for beneficial applications is immense. Infrastructure plans can be reworked to reflect real-world issues and address bottlenecks or danger zones in a much more accurate way. But it will also open up new possibilities for street surveillance, from identifying pedestrians through tracking other cars and monitoring masses of people, for instance, during a protest. With more cameras in the streets looking in every direction at every moment during the day, police departments will have more power to spy on the population without necessarily obtaining a warrant. Investigators could request access to camera feeds of private companies, a practice which isn't necessarily protected by the Fourth Amendment. And as car ownership will be gradually replaced by mobility as a service, citizens will have fewer and fewer arguments to claim privacy violation on property that is not their own. And let's not forget that any of these cameras can be used to get another angle on your face to feed the AI to perfect facial recognition. Cars will always be able to identify drivers, passengers, and anyone passing by, which could be useful in identifying victims or perpetrators of crime. That's always how it all starts. But identifying every single individual in the streets will give advertisers more attack vectors to track what you do offline, find your social media accounts, and target you with personalized ads not just on your devices, but in the beautiful outdoors of the urban landscape. The future is waiting for you. As much as all this may have doomer vibes, hope is not lost. Car surveillance, much like other attacks on our civil liberties, have a single root cause: Their technology is proprietary. The end user doesn't have a choice to modify or hack their own devices and distribute those modifications to other users. Copyright and patent laws limit our freedom to remove tracking or advertising code out of the products these companies want us to use. But imagine you could use Facebook or Tesla on your own terms rather than the company's terms and not get legally punished for it. You'd be able to plug into the network or use your own car without being tracked or denied access. We need the equivalent of Graphene OS for car operating systems, a free and open source car OS that is functional but much more secure and private. A freedom and privacy respecting OS that you could freely flash on your car without asking for the company's permission. Who would have thought that in today's day and age you can expect to have more privacy in authoritarian regimes like North Korea than in the shining beacons of democracy and freedom and... I wanted to make this video to educate people about this surveillance trend so that we can make more informed decisions about what kind of a society we want to live in. My thought is that we shouldn't have all of this forced upon us without our say. But no matter how critical I am, in a weird way I feel like I'm also promoting these companies and their technologies by giving them more spotlight and exposure. But not criticizing them is also not an option because criticism is essential. We shouldn't blindly follow any authority, corporate or governmental. Your participation is essential. You can affect your local municipalities and governments to put legal pressure on the use of facial recognition and surveillance technologies. And you can support open source projects that give us a way out without relying on the government or companies to do the right thing. Use the power in your hands right now because it might not be there later. Please support this content by engagement and donations that help make my production more sustainable. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Thank you.